games development major, and I just completed a unit last semester which was called Games as a Narrative, where we used UDK to basically create a game level, and we did a lot of game theory as well. But running through it, these are some of the game engines you might recognize. Obviously one of the big ones is Unreal. It's used in a lot of games from Bioshock to Borderlands to even like Alice Madness Returns and all those sort of things. Synapse Gaming actually make a game engine called Sunburn, which builds upon the XNA framework, which is Microsoft's way of creating programming libraries for games development. And what they've done is build upon that even more, so you can do all your game engine sort of stuff like importing all your assets and drawing things to the screen, or you can delve into the C# code if you want to. IdTech 5 is really recent as well because it's come out. It's going to be coming out when they debut Rage. You might have heard of it. It's one of their new titles where it's going to be sort of Mad Max style. You have vehicles going around, and it's going to be really gritty in the desert and all that. But some of the cool engine technology they got in there is actually mega texturing, where they try to put all the textures in one big file which they can stream into the level at different levels of detail. And then from there they can actually get a better sort of performance benefit out of that. And CryEngine 3 that is basically an evolution of CryEngine 2, which was debuted with the original Crysis. And you can actually get a version of the Cry editor with the original Crysis if you buy that. But CryEngine 3 is an evolution on that because it does cross-platform development, so you can make the same game, but then take it to 360 and PS3 as well as PC. And it's also added some direct text.
It's working now? A little bit.
And, yep, okay, microphone's working apparently, is it? No, it's not working. Is it? Testing? Yeah? Yep, that works a bit better, okay. And so my first experience with game engines was using GameMaker 6. It was about the first time I ever touched games development, and I went for my life with it. I made platforming games, I made maze games. One of the best things I ever made, and the first time I touched programming, was when I tried to make a 2D top-down version of Mario Kart, and I had to actually rotate a sprite and calculate the directions using their built-in programming language, which I think is based off of C. But then they developed it a bit more, and I started to move away from that, and I moved towards more things like C++ and Java and Flash. And I also use the Elder Scrolls Construction Set, which is a set of mod tools that the developers actually use to create the game itself. You can go in and you can move around the game world, you can load up levels, you can go into the Mehrunes, Dagon sort of Oblivion planes, but basically I used that so I could cheat. I wanted to place items into the game, and like the skeleton key, because I was a warrior, I didn't want to put points into lockpicking, so placed the skeleton key down, right in the Imperial City, picked it up, and then I was set for the rest of the game. So yeah, that was one of my first mods that I did, just playing the game how I wanted to play it, which is what it's all about. And since then there's been over 12,000 mods made using that construction set, which just shows the power that some simple tools can have on a major game such as Oblivion. And so a game engine really is your framework. It does a lot of the hard stuff for you. It does all the rendering, the content editing, and bringing in media music, organizing all your assets. It allows you to actually go, like, navigate around a viewport like you would in an FPS game. With UDK, you can actually use your mouse and keys. I might show you that later. And you place everything into the game world. You place all your lights and your objects and everything in. You can script your AI. You might not be doing programming at a really low level. You can do that sort of stuff, but if you're not looking to get that hardcore into it, you can do stuff like triggering doors and explosions and traps and things that get in the player's way. You can tell bots to go from here to there and shoot you if you're not, yeah. And so it's focusing on the content, not so much the base level sort of stuff that will go into the game engine. So the programming at that level would actually be programming the tools itself. It wouldn't actually be gameplay programming, but that sort of comes into it. But yeah, it saves you from reinventing the wheel, because you don't want to actually have to go and create your own game engine. It will take you forever. You actually want to see and learn from game engines that are out there already. Maybe down the track, if you get a team of people together, you can create your own game engine and it will be amazing and everyone will use it. But game engines are really good tools to get into games development because you can get them quite easily and you can play around with them and have a lot of fun. So it is a designer's tool. If you're into level design, if you're into sort of AI design or anything like that, it's a great tool to learn. And because you can take your concept, you can draw it out on paper, you can bring it in as a texture if you want, or you can just try and recreate your level and test it out. And it's pretty easy to share around levels that you create as well, so that you can share them off to your friends and get their feedback and keep going on with it. There's a really good community around lots of game engines, lots of help and lots of sharing of ideas. And so yeah. Oh yeah, and you can mod an existing game. Like that's how most people sort of get into games development at first. And if you don't want to create an entire game from scratch, doing everything, programming, art, all that, you can mod an existing game because all the content's in there for you. You don't have to make your own robots. You don't have to make your own plants and trees. It's all there ready to go. You just need to drop it in, and you can show off your work when you want to go out into the games industry if you're interested in that. Yes. So you can place things into the game world. You can place where all your lights are. You can set what light sort of color you want, your brightness, and how far the lights want to go. You can control your cinematics. There's really good tools where you can actually move the camera around and follow it through, and then you can play that back, so that's what the player will see. You can do really cool things with camera angles. You can zoom right out, zoom right back in again. So it can also, they're tools for making machinima. That's what a lot of people like to do with that. Machinima is pretty cool, like red versus blue and those sort of things. And so I'm going to talk a bit about UDK because that's what I studied over the last semester, and it's probably the game engine that I've studied the most. It's based off the Unreal 3 engine, and it's got a lot of it's free for educational use as well. Unless your game that you make with it makes over $50,000 US, you don't actually have to pay anything to Unreal other than a $99 licensing fee once you start selling your game. And you can actually even make iPad and iPhone games with the newest variations of UDK. It's got multi-threading as well. It's actually a really well-performing engine. Unlike the CryEngine, which you need mid-range at least and high-end hardware to run, this will run on PCs that are like 3-4 years old. And if you're making sort of like a 2D side-scroller game or a strategy game, it will run really well and you get lots of frames per second, even if you chuck thousands of enemies in and explosions everywhere. And it takes care of all the networking and physics for you. It's got a programming sort of visual programming language in it called Kismet, which you use to link together nodes that control objects in the game world, whether it's light, brightness, or moving things around, all that sort of stuff. And I'll show you a little tech demo here. I don't know if you've seen it already. It was at the Game Developers Conference. It's called Samaritan, and it shows you some of the new graphics technology that Unreal has.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Raise your hand if you've seen it.
Yes. And this is all running real time as well. It's not being rendered out to a cinematic.
People don't believe that.
Yeah, because it is running DirectX 11 features in there, such as the tessellation on the bricks, some of the lighting. Oh yeah, the hexacore. Yeah.
Ultimate version of this would actually highlight the graphics.
Yeah.
No, they point out the I was going close. If this one didn't say, look at this, look at that. This engine is awesome.
As well, it's really easy to do character animation. You can bring in your model from Maya or 3ds Max, rig it all up, and you can move all the limbs around so that you can do cool cinematics like this. make the clothes fly around. Yeah. Remember kids, don't smoke or you might be attacked by evil robots.
All out cigarettes.
So yeah, Unreal is pretty exciting stuff. Oh yeah, Steam sale is still on, last day, so you can grab yourself some really cool stuff of that. This is what the level editor looks like in Unreal. I've got the content browser on the right side there. That allows you to bring in all your materials. You actually have to turn textures into materials first. I'll show you the material editor in a bit. So you get your perspective view, that's the bottom left one, where you can move around using the mouse. And then you got all your orthographic views. They're really helpful for when you need a really pinpoint precision, move stuff around. So you want everything flat and level. And this was actually the level that I was making in my subject last semester. It was a bit of a sort of space theme level. You had to break out of a prison that was set on an asteroid. So this was one of the control rooms in there. It's all red because the place is crumbling apart and it's moved on to sort of emergency lighting. And all the buttons on the side, you can switch between different modes. You can switch to geometry mode, which lets you, like, if you've ever used a 3D modeling package before, you can take a cube or a sphere or anything like that. You can move the points around and you can just make walls like that. You can just get a rectangle and say, I want to add a wall here, and it adds it, and then you put your texture on it, and it's easy. Sorry? Oh, leave questions to the end, but thank you. And then, yeah, and you've got all your settings there. You can change to different lighting settings as well. And this is what Kismet looks like. This looks complicated, but it's actually not that bad. Some of the diamond-shaped nodes are events. These are actually triggers. So when you actually walk up to a button and you press E, you point it to another node. Up there, up the top, is opening a graphics movie. You can actually import Flash content. If you want to have your own Flash movies, you can chuck it in there. And then it closes it again. And the big orange thing is what's called a matinee. Now that allows you to do a lot of cool stuff. That one is actually linked to 6 different purple objects, which are parts of a wall that crumbles away. So each of those has its own movement data, which is, once that triggers, all the rocks follow along that path that I set out for them, and they all crumble away, so the wall crumbles away. And over the right side is some detection and playing some other messages and sort of that sort of stuff. So all you have to do is grab all your nodes out. Instead of programming with typing, it's programming with blocks. If you've ever done Lego Mindstorms, it'd be pretty similar to that. Yeah, this is the material editor. So all the editing windows look pretty similar. The particle editor window also has a similar interface. This was a material I made to make laser bars flicker. And the ones on the very far right are texture coordinates that go into panners that actually move the texture in real time, and then they just sort of multiply together and add together. Then I added some red on the end because otherwise it was just normal sort of laser bar texture. I wanted it to be red because red's cool. Yeah, so how you can actually get started, it's really easy to get started with UDK. It's about a 1.3 gigabyte download now. So if you can download it from someone who's got a nice internet plan and a fast one. You can also get Crysis because that comes with the CryEngine editor. I played around with that. I've chucked a whole bunch of some of the Korean enemies on some beach somewhere. Then I gave myself the best weapons in the game and drove around and made some hills and launched my tank off of a bit of a jump. So that was fun. Unity is another great one as well. You can make 2D and 3D games on that. That's cross-platform as well. And yeah, Hammer and all the Steam software development kit stuff is all free now. If you want to make maps for TF2 or Half-Life Deathmatch or anything like that, you can look into that. And yes, books are very helpful. There's actually this really massively chunky book in the Monash library, just on UDK, which I had a bit of a look at, but then I put it back because I was learning all the stuff from my video tutorials. But they're really good references, and they are still relevant in this day and age. And also look into game developers associations, such as the Game Developers Association of Australia, the Independent Game Developers Association, SMEA, and so on. Yes, questions? You at the back. Yeah, we can do that. Is there anything else, sir, before I start that? Yep.
How long did it take you to build this asteroid level?
I would say it was mostly put together in the last 2 weeks of the semester, but we're working on it since about week 3 or 4. I probably spent maybe about 24, 28 hours on it all up. That was bringing all my textures together and documenting it all and all that. Yes?
What is the best and easiest engine to use?
Just because I've used it the most, I'd say UDK, and there's tons of video tutorials on it. It was hard for me to get into it before I went to university, but that's just because I didn't have a really structured approach at doing it. And you really need to stay committed to it, so you need to have either someone else who's making you stay on track, or some sort of fun thing that you want to do with it to keep going with it. But I think on the holidays, what I'm going to do from now is actually put in some of my own ideas. Because the hard part is actually learning the editor itself. At first it's very confusing because there's buttons everywhere and you haven't found all the cool features in it. But once you get past that and you do the stuff in the tutorials, you can take it anywhere really.
That's the best part. You don't need anything aside from the video tutorials.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
How do you do lighting without failing?
Lighting without failing is a bit of trial and error. There's a couple of different light types in UDK. It actually uses this thing that's called light mass. Yeah, and it pre-bakes the shadows and casts them out. But have you used UDK before?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know how you can go into your light settings and you can adjust everything from... Oh, you might actually want to use, instead of just general point lights, you can use directional lights. If you want to simulate a sun or an outside environment, you use a dominant directional light sort of thing and adjust the brightness and the coloring until you get it right. Or you can use, if you're in an inside environment, you might want to use multiple lights here and there because otherwise the shadows can come out kind of weird. Yeah, it's trial and error.
Yeah, leave the lighting to the last.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
That's the question. I've started using UDK recently.
Yep.
I found a really well-structured kind of set of tutorials on 3D buzzer comments really helped me get into it.
Yeah, that's the ones that we actually used in our university subjects. So yeah, they're the best tutorials to go with. And I think, what was I going to say there? Yes. Yep. Yeah. I think you should do some research first, of course. You can look for forums on games development. You can try just going straight into the deep end with one of the game engines like UDK and going through tutorials and stuff like that. But you also want to learn some of the theory behind it, because one of the benefits of doing it as a proper subject was we were taught how to actually draw our level concepts out on paper. But you can sort of teach yourself that sort of stuff. It's pretty common sense. You just need to have a process about it. So you know what you're working towards, you know what's next, and what you can do to get other people to help you as well. Because you want to get feedback and you want to be able to show off what you do. But yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, yep. One more.
Yeah. So would you advise drawing it out on paper first if you were doing a really big?
Yes, and go it section by section as well. Try and get a few things working, and then go for your life. Yeah, but I'll show you the level that I made, and I'll also show you Ness's level, because we were actually on the same team for our project there. Okay.
Looks like you actually done the
let me move this up. This is a little bit of a cinematic here. You sort of wake up and look at the screen, look over there, and that is actually what the player is heading towards. So you start off here. I built this sort of entire level. You start off with walls, and this bit is actually something I made in Maya, because I studied a bit of Maya and I learned how to make simple shapes and objects in that. And working buttons. Buttons are fun, and you can actually do fun stuff like that. Make the bed move around. The toilet makes sounds, and I've got these bars here. And I want to get through this wall. If I look there, oh, I'm a dangerous prisoner. I better not break out of here. Oh, I broke through the wall. So a bit of information to the player. And all those prompts that come on the screen are actually Flash movies that I made up. They're all Swift files that play through that. And coming through here, you see another gap. And this is terrain here. There's a really cool tool in UDK which allows you to take a paintbrush, like you would in Photoshop, and add or subtract height to terrain, smooth it out, and add textures as well. Go across here. There's a bit of green lighting here. Oh, maybe I want to go here, but I can't get through yet. So I'm going to go the other way. All those lights are actually kind of fake. That material itself does emit light, but I've also put a point light there, but you can't actually see the point lights. They're things that you can see in the editor, but the player doesn't see. Through here we got some red lighting, and I go through here. And you can see this type of materials you can make in UDK. I played around and I made this sort of material that looks a bit like a screen, because it changes colour when you look at it at different angles. Go through here. Getting sound into UDK was a bit annoying because you need a specific format, but that's the end of the level there. And now I'll show you Nas's level, and then she can lead you into concept art. But yeah, this is the editing window.
And just so you guys know, he's a game design student, and I'm a multimedia student, so I might not be as good as he is. But yeah.
Yeah. So these are all my walls here. You can actually click on them like this. This is actually what it looks like. And I could even drag this out and add another wall if I wanted to, really easily. And I could just add it in like that, and that's a particle system there. This is what it looks like when there's no lighting, just so that you can actually see your way around. If you've got a game with really dark lighting, you might not be able to see anything. This is where the player starts as well. It's only running slow because it's trying to calculate the lighting in real time instead of trying to render it all out first and then build it back in again. And I've been doing production quality light builds that actually take about a minute to generate. But I'll load up NASA's level. Her one's got a bit more sort of platforming elements to it as well. Yeah?
Did you do the textures yourself?
The textures I got from a texture pack on DeviantArt, but then I modified quite heavily. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the gun is actually from the Unreal Engine 3. It comes in there by default. You can shoot, yes. Yeah. So you can use any of the Unreal Tournament guns. You walk in here and there's little cinematic players. Is there anything you want to say about your level, Naz?
No, you're doing fine.
I played through this about 10 times, so I know where I'm going. So we'll go through here. Oh, we've got something to pick up. We've already got the gun, but you can pick up the gun again if you like.
Different guns.
These boots allow you to do a hyper jump. How did you program that in, by the way?
Oh.
Yeah. Shoot through the wall. Yeah, and if you're actually, if I stay in this room for just a little bit longer, gas sort of seeps into the room and it becomes to get a little bit hazy and foggy because it's got on the room applied a post-process volume. You see it's become hazy over there, but then as soon as I step outside of it, it will go away. Like that. So you can actually dynamically change the environment of your player just by having these post-process volumes in there. You can do things like tone it down with blue to make it seem like it's a really cold place. So you can do all these sort of stylistic changes to your level to change the player experience. You know, most of the lighting for this level is provided off the lights of the walls and then a couple of point lights above it. So what we want to do here, we've got a big long gap, so we'll use the hyper jump and the boots and got across, or you could also go across the sides there. Use the boots to get through. And across the platforms, and that's it. There is a teleporter that links it to another level, but I have to open it up in the actual game to show you that. But yeah.